Trump is in the Middle East, and there are developments that are breaking, I'm sure, as we speak right now. But we feel confident that this segment is worth doing anyway, because this is kind of about the run-up to his visit, in which the Israelis seem to be getting sidelined on important decision after important decisions. So this is from the New York Times. Hamas frees American held in Gaza in deal that largely circumvents Israel. So Trump and Hamas negotiated the release of the last remaining American hostage, who, yes, was a dual citizen and, yes, had served in the IDF. But he was a U.S. citizen, which meant that Donald Trump felt that he could negotiate directly with those who are holding him hostage and that we didn't need to involve the Israelis. So Hamas released Eden Alexander, the last living American hostage it held in Gaza, on Monday evening after mediators brokered a deal between the group and the United States that largely circumvented the Israeli government. Mr. Alexander's release came on the eve of a visit by President Trump to the Middle East and was portrayed by Hamas officials as an attempt to secure U.S. support for a wider deal to end the war. Unlike most other hostages, Mr. Alexander was released without a formally announced ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, highlighting the failure of efforts to secure a broader truce between the two sides. Hamas still holds at least 20 living hostages, along with some 40 dead bodies, including those of several Americans, but it is reluctant to release more of them unless Israel agrees to hold negotiations to end the war. Israel wants the right to continue the war after any future truce, leading to an impasse in the talks. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, said in a statement on Monday that Mr. Alexander's release showed the benefits of placing Hamas under greater military pressure. In March, Mr. Netanyahu ordered the Israeli military to break an earlier ceasefire, saying it would force the group to release more hostages and lead to its total military defeat. So here is Netanyahu trying to cope a little bit as if he deserves some credit for this latest hostage release. We embrace him, and we embrace his family. This was achieved thanks to our military pressure and the diplomatic pressure applied by President Trump, mostly President Trump. This is a winning combination. I spoke with President Trump today. He told me, I am committed to Israel and committed to continuing to work with you in close cooperation in order to achieve all of our war objectives, releasing all of the hostages and defeating Hamas. This goes together. They're combined with each other. So he's issuing a statement making it sound like he and President Trump's pressure combined are what achieved this deal and that there was some efficacy in breaking the ceasefire. Of course, that is total cope and total nonsense, which most Israelis recognize by now. In addition to that negotiation bypassing Israel and Netanyahu, Reuters reports under Trump, Saudi civil nuclear talks delinked from Israel recognition, sources say. The United States is no longer demanding Saudi Arabia normalize ties with Israel as a condition for progress on civil nuclear cooperation talks, two sources with knowledge of the matter told Reuters ahead of Donald Trump's visit next week, which is right now. Dropping the demand that Saudi Arabia establish diplomatic relations with Israel would be a major concession by Washington. Under former President Joe Biden, nuclear talks were an element of wider U.S.-Saudi deal tied to normalization and to Riyadh's goal of a defense treaty with Washington. Trump says U.S. to stop strikes on Houthis in Yemen. This was, again, something where Donald Trump went over Netanyahu's head or behind his back, whichever metaphor you prefer. This report came out in Haaretz because Trump is going to Qatar on Wednesday. I think he's going there tomorrow.
He's got to pick up his plane.
Yeah, right. He's going to go pick up the plane. I think he's going tomorrow or Thursday, but I think tomorrow. So I think we're going to be able to cover this more on Thursday.
This has the leather seats I ordered.
Yeah, exactly. But Haaretz reports Trump plans to unveil plans to end Gaza war in Qatar, ordering Netanyahu to fall in line. After Netanyahu tried to impose demands and blame Hamas for the breakdown in talks, Eden Alexander's release signals coordination between Qatar and the U.S. Witkoff instructed Netanyahu to send a team to Doha, where tight schedules Oh, wait. So we don't have word on that. Obviously, that would be huge news if it happens. This was kind of a frustrating week to do this job because so much of the quote unquote news was actually like internal speculation about
Right.
how this
Yeah.
Middle East trip might go, how the Russia Ukraine negotiations might go. If we reported every time Trump said something that sounded like it might be important, I mean, that would be all we would cover. He said on the plane,
Yeah.
we have to be good to Gaza. They're suffering. Oh, really? Oh, really? They're suffering. Wow. We have to be good to Gaza. You could have come to that realization 5 months ago, right? Before Israel broke the ceasefire. But anyway, there is a recognizable pattern, obviously, of Trump going over Netanyahu's head. There have been reports that their personal relationship is now quite fraught, which again does not surprise me. No one gets along with the guy. They deal with him to the extent they feel that they have to, and Trump feels especially obligated this time, especially because of that $100 million investment from Miriam Adelson, and God knows what blackmail material they have on him and his crackerjack cabinet there. But there's no like real genuine friendship between Netanyahu and anybody. He and Obama clearly hated each other. It was clear that he didn't like Biden very much either. Biden, there was reports out of the Biden White House. He
Hmm.
hung up on him.
Hmm.
You're an asshole. You're this, you're that. So again, we could speculate. We could have spent these last few shows speculating for 3 hours at a time about what will happen this week. This is very new, but Israeli military to enter Gaza with full force in coming days, says Netanyahu. So Netanyahu says there will be no situation where we stop the war. A temporary ceasefire might happen, but we are going all the way, Netanyahu said in a statement on Tuesday. The announcement comes as U.S. President Donald Trump tours the Middle East with no scheduled stop in Israel. So it's not an accident that Netanyahu put out that statement now, because he knows he's being snubbed
Right.
on this trip.
Yep.
He
Yep.
knows that the Trump administration is starting to circumvent them. And so he wants to put out a statement, hey, we're not stopping. So, as long as, Donald Trump is sort of sticking a thumb in the eye of Netanyahu, and like I said, nothing's happened yet. Nothing's happened yet.
Mhm.
We know so far what the hostage release and the talks with the Saudis and the talks with Iran and the ceasefire with Yemen have pissed off the hardcore Zionists. That's what we know. In terms of what's going to happen with the war on Gaza, we don't know yet, and I don't want to really get too out in front of ourselves because so much of
Sure.
what is said turns out to be bullshit,
I
right?
mean, he's still got that Miriam money in his
Of course, he
pockets.
still got it. Right, exactly. So I don't want to say like too much too soon and have to take it back on Thursday, right? Because that's very possible if we go there, right? But if you are giving this whole relationship a second thought, you know what you could do? You could let Mahmoud Khalil out of fucking jail. Like, if you're going to start sticking your thumb in their eye, then how about you let your own people speak freely about this issue? How about that? Right?
That would be
How
an
about you
idea.
stop terrorizing your own people and green card holders for criticizing Israel? Like, it just makes no, like, it's amazing to think, okay, all this is happening while we still have students getting expelled from school for criticizing Israel. Right? I mean, this
Yeah.
like I said, this is not just geopolitics. This is about civil liberties as well, and the civil liberties, pardon me, offenses that Donald Trump has committed on behalf of this country that he's now in pretty open feud with. It should be a wake up call. Hey, look, we are 3 degrees from Donald Trump, 4 degrees from Donald Trump. We don't know Donald Trump. We don't know anyone who knows Donald Trump. We know people who know people who know Donald Trump. We know people who know Tucker, who I'm sure could text Donald Trump if he wants to. We know the Rumble guys who know his son, who can get in touch with him. Maybe we can get a little telephone game going. Hey, as
Yeah.
long as you're
Hey.
feuding with the Israelis, maybe let people out of jail for criticizing Israel. Maybe ease up on that. Maybe understand. As long as you understand now, you're starting to see the picture foreign policy wise that you're America's president, not Israel's president. Maybe you can bring those ideas back home and stop terrorizing people for protected speech under your First Amendment, which you have a duty to uphold.
On one condition, I'm going to need Gyllenhaal's daughter to recreate one of my favorite scenes from Secretary.
Yeah, exactly.
The dictation spanking scene. I like that.
Hey, if the Rumble guys are watching, can we incorporate that script into a 1775 coffee ad? Because maybe then other creators will read it and will get the message. Maybe if Don Jr. read that in an ad, he could tell his father, he could pass along the word.
Well, another reason before we leave this that the Zionists are freaking out is they'll deny it. They have the temerity to deny that Israel's existence is completely dependent on American support. If you push them on it, they like to try to pretend they made the desert bloom and they don't really need the United States, but they know they do. They know 5 seconds after the U.S. cuts them off, the surrounding countries will chew them up like a chocolate covered cherry.
Right.
That's really what underlies the desperation. Like any
Well,
sign of daylight between the US and Israel, they're going to freak out because that's the end of Israel if it were to continue, which is very unlikely given the Miriam Adelson money that it will really go in that direction. But that's a big part of what underlies that.
yes, absolutely, 100%.
Please clap.